Welcome back to the Inner Beauty School podcast. I'm so happy that you are joining me today. I have a very special guest to share with you. His name is Adam Kiddoo, and as well as being my friend, he is also an amazing coach for entrepreneurs. He's a leadership coach, and he helps entrepreneurs step into the leadership role within their business to really help kind of just skyrocket things. And in this episode, we go really deep into what it actually looks like to be a leader, and not just what it looks like, but how to actually embody those qualities so that you can be the most powerful and effective leader in your business. I'm not going to waste any more time chatting about it. Let's just get right into it. Yay, Adam is here today. I'm so excited to get to have an interview and a chat with you. And today we're going to talk about all things leadership, which is so important. We're going to talk about it in so many different ways, but specifically in entrepreneurship and running a business, in life, because as Adam also mentioned, we were talking a little bit off camera, you're a leader in every area of your life, or you can be. So how can you best show up as a leader? So let's just start with that. Like, what does leadership mean to you? And how can you be a good leader in your business, for your team, and in your life?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, hi, Sarah, and hi, Sarah's listeners. I'm so stoked to be on here rapping with you guys today. So Sarah and I are good buddies, and this is going to be a great episode. So make sure you stick all the way through. Sometimes we get a little scattered brain in this world. So when it comes to a leader, for me, there's a lot of people that look at the word leadership and it's kind of like, well, I could never be a leader. That's just not who I am. That's not part of me, and things like that. And namely, that's because we were brought up in this world as good little boys and girls who were fitting in line and standing in line in class and always raising our hands. And if we did anything to really stand out, our teachers or our parents or anybody else would kind of bat an eye at us and think we were being crazy little boys and girls. So we were trained all our lives to fit in. And then we have this golden opportunity to, be entrepreneurs and to show up courageously online, which that's basically, in a nutshell, all I help entrepreneurs with is to get out of their own way, get out of their own heads, stop with all the limiting beliefs and all the fears, and show up courageously for yourself and for the people that you're here to serve. So when it comes to basically transitioning yourself into the old way of being, all the beliefs that you've been brought up to believe, and stepping into the leader, which deep down inside, I think all of us have this calling inside of us. It's like, there's something more here. There's something more that I'm being called towards, but I don't know what that is. So being a leader today is standing for what you believe in without the preconceived notion that you're doing something wrong, because this world we're living in, we need more leaders. We need more people who are singing what is in their heart, not holding back, not trying to fit in, not trying to look like they have it all figured out. And Sarah and I are going to get into that a little bit, because at one point in my business, I was wearing a big mask. I was trying to look like I had it all figured out because I thought that's what people wanted in a leader. They have all the answers, all of them. But that's not the case. So yeah, in this episode, we'll definitely dive into more about that. So hopefully I set the context for being a leader here.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so interesting that you say wearing a mask. And, again, we were talking a little bit off camera. I feel like in my real life, air quotes, that I am really vulnerable. Like, I open up and I feel like that's a strength of mine. But then when you go online, or you're, having a little bit of a bigger audience or leading a team or whatever, you do sort of put on a little bit of a mask where you feel like you have to have everything figured out to show up and be a leader. And I have absolutely been guilty of that, where I feel like sometimes I can't show up when I'm in the shit, when I'm in the middle, the messy, middle. I think Brene Brown calls it the messy middle. And I love that because the messy middle is like most of life. And maybe you've seen this too, but I feel like that's what people relate to. Would you agree with that? Like, and how can someone do that? How can I even do that better, where you want to show up and be vulnerable, but also be leading and be kind of, leading a mission or a charge, or like something where you feel like you have been called to something, like you said, greater than what maybe you're doing right now, and you want to lead, but you also want to lead authentically.
Yeah. First of all, trust me when I say, when you try to act like you have it all figured out, that is freaking exhausting. So, and yet again, we relate with real people. There's definitely people that we see like they have it all figured out, and then they'll share something with us. For example, James Wedmore shared a story with us at the Business by Design live event this last week. I won't get into that. However, that's one of the reasons my voice is a little gone today on this episode. But however, yeah, it's freaking exhausting to try to present yourself in a way that you have all the answers, because then people come to you with all the questions, right? And you're like, have to hold up that persona. And for me, what was being taken away from me when I was acting like I had it all figured out, this was a few years ago when I was starting my business and things like that, was I wasn't able to connect deeper with people. And in this social media world, it has the word social in front of it, but it's turning into the opposite of social, to where we are lacking that connection, that deeper connection right now. And if you're the type of person that feels like you need to only show up when you're buttoned up, polished up, got everything together, then people aren't really connecting with the you that they need to connect with in order for them to be like, this is my girl, or this is my guy right here. Like, I connect with them because we don't connect with perfect. I mean, we definitely idolize that, and we see people in that certain way, but we don't really connect deeper with perfect. So when it comes down to, being a leader, first of all, the work for me, it's like just getting to know yourself better, and just kind of getting to, asking yourself good questions. Because for a lot of us, we ask questions like, why can't I break through? Or why am I struggling with this? Or why does XYZ person have success and I don't? Those are very, very disempowering questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start asking questions, like, what makes me different? And yet again, to be different was to be, an outsider or something. But now to be different, to stand out online and in life, and to, really lean into what makes you unique. Ask yourself, what makes you different? What makes you matter? What would you love if you could just talk about something all day long and just never shut up about it? What would that be? Because chances are there's something in that message that other people are going to resonate with it as well. And we usually come from the standpoint of like, what can I say to make my, people that are listening want to buy from me and things like that. Yet again, that's usually coming from a scarcity standpoint. Yes, we want to be the person that, excuse me, attracts people in a way that makes them want to buy from you and work with you and be close to you. However, a better question to ask is, what do these people need to hear from me today to show up more powerfully in their own life and business? Because when you come from an impact standpoint, the income will follow. But if you're always worried about the money, people pick up on that. We are, basically subconscious creatures. 95 to 99% of our waking lives are run by our subconscious. So when you're coming from a place of, I hope they buy, or I hope this works out, or I hope this connects with people, we pick up on that energy without even knowing it. But if you can stand for what you believe in and really put yourself out there, just trusting that, hey, look, somebody's going to get this message. This is going to change somebody's life. And then that's where you step into not necessarily, being the person who wants to fall in line and be the good little boy and girl, but really stepping into owning the leadership role at that point.
Yeah. Yes, I love everything you're saying. So I feel like, though, a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this as well, it's like, okay, yeah, that sounds great, but what if I do that and people like, when you say like, I don't know about you, but I definitely grew up, you mentioned at the beginning, feeling very much like sit down and shut up and be good. So like when you go to kind of break out of that, it's quote air quotes quote unquote hard because you're literally beaten down with that your whole life. So what can people do to kind of like really shift that and shift the focus of like, but if I do something different, people are going to talk about me, or people are gonna, say my Aunt Sally isn't gonna understand when I'm trying to talk about, whatever. Like, how can people like start to step into that more, and kind of break out of that? Like, but I just want to fit in, because in all the way through at least high school, it's all about how can I fit in the best and like not stand out. I don't want to stand out at all. And so then we come into like business and it's like, but how can you stand out? And you're like, but I've literally spent my whole life trying desperately to not stand out.
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a deeper part of us that is basically ingrained not to put ourselves in situations that will receive judgment. And so it literally goes back to our old caveman days of like, doing something outside of the norm. As a caveman, you're basically risking your life. If you go to a different bush you haven't been to before, you don't know what's over at that bush. So, your body is ingrained to like, basically put you in that fight or flight state. That's like, something's wrong here. This is uncomfortable. And so for me, so I started my career in the marketing world in 2009. My wife and I moved back to our hometown of Chinook, Kansas in 2012. And that's when I started my business. Before then, I was, an athlete, like all growing up. So I always had this kind of side of me that I was confident in being an athlete, and people kind of knew me and I stood out from being an athlete. And then I get in the business world and all that's kind of like erased at that point, and I have to start fresh. And in 2014, I fell into, I use this word lightly. I call it a depression. I wasn't clinically diagnosed by any means, but if I had to bet, I'd bet a lot on, I was definitely depressed. It was so hard for me to take one step outside of my comfort zone at that point. I literally, like, my whole world like just shriveled up. And at that point, two things happened. One is I got this huge sense for other people that are going through similar things, that they just like are just like shriveling up inside. They're just like in pain, and they don't really know how to go about like moving forward. And another thing was I had to do everything within my willpower to take steps outside my comfort zone, because literally it would take me weeks sometimes to talk myself into like one small action. It was the wildest thing. And then it got to a point where it's like, okay, I'm I'm finally outside of that dark place. Now, how do I continue to take action outside of my comfort zone so I can continue to expand my comfort zone? And you'd be surprised. It's like the things that we fear, like you talked about earlier, Aunt Sally judging us and things like that. These are usually just silly thoughts in our head. So if you like really put this into context, these little vibrations in our brain are telling us somebody's going to judge you, XYZ. This is unsafe. This is uncomfortable. But they're literally little, like I like to picture them as little thought bubbles. And I'm like, are you going to let these little thought bubbles, these little false interpretations, get in your way of like singing with your heart, opening up, helping the people that are in pain and need your help as well? So
That's big. That's
yeah,
big. Yeah.
yes. So when you put it in context, it's like you're letting these little thoughts. And I had this quote written on my whiteboard for years. It says, "Fear is getting out into the future without the resources you have available to you right now." So I
Ooh.
want to say that again just so it lands. Fear is getting out into the future without the resources you have available to you right now. So we are very, very, very resourceful people. We have our humor, we have our wit, we have past experiences, we have our heart, we have compassion. So at any given moment, when we're like out there, like we see ourselves out in this moment in our brain and we don't have any of the resources available,
Mm.
even though we are very resourceful, at any given moment, we're going to be absolutely fine.
Mm.
Literally, we have a chance to reframe how anything is perceived. It's like if Aunt Sally says something, it's like, why are we taking advice from Aunt Sally here? Like she's never done anything to step up in her life. And Sarah and I's mentor Jim Fortin always says, people are judging machines. Like you and I judge, like everybody listening on this episode, we all judge. in one facet or another. So why are you going to let the fact that everybody in this world judges hold you back from doing what you absolutely love? And when you kind of see it from there, it's like, oh, they're going to judge anyway, so I might as well put my heart out there. I might as well be judged for, singing my song, singing my message, and things like that. So it takes fear, and it really kind of just bottles it up into this thing that can be, more and more disregarded. And each time you take a step forward, you feel more comfortable in this fear and in this space of possibly being judged, which yet again everybody judges anyways. And so it kind of just reframes everything that you're afraid of, and it allows you to continue to look and say, okay, how can I step out even further? What's the next step? And one more thing to wrap that up. In high school, I just like had so much courage. Like literally, like I always wanted to be the person like on the spot, in the spotlight. There would be like events where there was like hundreds of people, like like spirit days or something in the gym, and I would come like running across the gym, and I'd like trip myself in front of the whole school, just to like get a laugh in front of people and things like
You
that.
were that guy.
I was that guy, and I'd run off like acting like I was embarrassed and stuff like that. And I was always doing stuff back then to really kind of like stretch my courage and things like that. And then I stopped doing that. And it's like a muscle. It's like once you stop using it, once you stop, flexing it, it's gonna grow back into its old way. So the trick is to continue to ask yourself, like, how can I step out and show up and, serve at a higher level? So.
I love that. So I'm kind of thinking of past experiences for me in that as well, because I used to be absolutely like just terrified to press go live on like on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And or even get on any video whatsoever. I was like not even like I couldn't even put my finger on there's a thought coming up here, or I must be thinking that like I couldn't even put a finger on it because it's so much in my body, and I would just shake, like just uncontrollably shake. And it's exactly what you're saying. Like I just had to be like, on the count of 3, I'm going to push go live, and whatever happens, happens. And what would happen is I would push go live. My heart would be beating out of my chest. And 2 minutes into it, I'm calmed down. And like, I realized like, no, saber-tooth tiger has come to attack me and I'm okay. And then like, after that, when you're talking about like stretching further, okay, what can I do now? Because I think that's exactly what it is. It's like, okay, I stretched this much, but now I'm going to go a little bit further. Now I'm going to go a little bit further, and you just do what's in front of you, like whatever. But then I started working with this PR lady, and she was booking me like on these, shows. I was in Chicago and Nashville, and after she booked the first one, I was like, what the hell? Like, I can't do this. Like, I don't even like to be on video that much. And then I would notice those thoughts. Then I started noticing the thoughts like before, and I would start immediately, anytime I would hear the thought of, no, you can't, like, what are you thinking? Who do you think you are? I would be like, I would have something on like backup that I would be like, you are awesome. You got this. You can totally do this. And like kind of exactly all the things that you're saying. I'm just kind of showing how like I can see this has played out in my life. And then, you go and you get on the news, and same thing. Your heart's beating out of your chest for 2 minutes, and then you settle in and you're fine. And you have what you just said. You have all the tools right there. They're with you, your heart and all the things that you mentioned. Like, so it's partly about, like you said, noticing the thought bubbles. I love that. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. The thought bubbles, like imagine them as thought bubbles. Like that's all they are. And just, you can even pop them.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, exactly.
And then having something like a backup that you can say, but also understanding that your body is just going to do what it's going to do. And you are the one that can push through and kind of like do it anyway. Yeah. And come out on the other side like, oh, yeah,
that's a great point. And I always go back to this analogy that I heard from Tony Robbins. He was working with 2 different performing artists at the same time. And the first person he was talking about said, before when I'm backstage, I'm getting ready to go out on stage, my heart's beating, my hands are sweaty, my thoughts are racing. and that's when I know I'm ready. And the next
Mm.
person says the same thing. It said, I'm backstage, my heart starts racing, my palms are sweaty, my thoughts are racing, and that's when I know I'm freaking out. And that was
Oh.
subtle, just like way of looking at it changed all context. So literally, it's like when you are excited and when you're like quote unquote nervous, that's basically in a nutshell the exact same feelings. Like it's like your body's like vibrating. And if you put your interpretation on it that I'm freaking out or like I'm scared or I'm nervous or I look nervous or anything like that, your brain will literally just start like going down the rabbit hole. But if you're like, I'm ready, like this is exciting, let's do this, just like you said, then you take just like responsibility for where you're at in that moment, and just that small little perspective shift like literally changes everything. So watch how you sentence things. I like to say that your sentences, what you say, will either sentence you to a life of hard work
Mm.
or easy work. So it's like watch what you're saying and watch what you're labeling things as, for sure. So
100%. I did an episode recently on your word is your wand. Like it is what kind of like creates everything. It was, based on Flow, a little Florence Scovel Shin, because you're right. And I haven't heard it said that way. You're basically watch your sentence because you're sentencing yourself to whatever comes next.
Yep, absolutely.
I love that. And I can't remember where I had heard that, but I had heard that same thing that you just mentioned, that the anxiety and like excitement are very closely linked in the body. And so it's almost a little brain trick you can do. And I've totally done it and it totally works, where instead of being like, I'm so nervous, and like, oh, I'm so nervous. Instead, I don't ever say that anymore.
Yeah.
Now I only say, I'm so excited. I
Yep.
am so excited that I get to do X, Y, or Z. And nervousness doesn't even come into it because I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. Like, and that's how I know I'm ready. Like I just wrote it down because that's going to go, that's going to go into my sentence. But
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And something I help my clients on is to distinguish the moments where they're feeling disempowered versus empowered. And you can get a sense of like how you feel. You can get a sense of the emotions that are coming up, and also you can get a sense of like what you say to yourself. So it's like that's exactly when I'm getting ready to do a Facebook Live and things like that. I'll automatically like get myself in a peak stage where I'm feeling good and strong, and I will tell myself, let's do this. We've got this. Let's go. And just simple little things like that, instead of like, just like where we were talking about where we used to start is like you're on live on Facebook, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. Now it's like, you got this. Let's go. So definitely it's like whatever's going on in your mind will feed into your body, and whatever's going on to your body will feed into your mind. So if you can get yourself centered and stable and do your deep breathing and kind of just get yourself in a nice, either relaxing state or a very excited state, and then just tell yourself, hey, let's go. We got this.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe this is what you've just kind of said, but like, I know you work with embodying things. So like when we take it back to like the leadership stuff, how can somebody, and maybe again, it's part of what you just said, but how can someone embody those things? How can someone embody what leadership looks like and start to show up as the leader that they want to be authentically, and all of those things that we mentioned? But how can someone do that?
Sure. So this is kind of twofold here. So one is a great place to start is just to look at other people that you see as leaders, or if there's characteristics of somebody, like for example, James Wedmore is one of the most committed people that I've ever ran across in my life. And it's just like, for me, it was like getting curious, like what makes him tick? What does he kind of think when he's making sure he stays, to his commitments? And literally like when he's in a launch, he doesn't answer his phone. He doesn't answer emails. He's like, launch, and that's it. So he's fully committed to that. So you can kind of get a sense from other people, just like how do they hold themselves when they're up on stage? Like what do they think? What do they do backstage before that? And that's one thing to be able to. My first step is always identify. So identify what other people are doing that works for them, and then obviously we have to take it to ourselves, because we're all the same, but we're all different as well. So it's like what makes you feel courageous or committed, whatever that way of being is. And like we just talked about, what can you say to yourself? How can you hold your body? Because chances are, if you're like getting ready to do a Facebook Live and your shoulders are slouching and you're shaking your head and your hands are in your pockets and things like that, you're probably not in a state that is conducive to you showing up powerfully and courageously online. So those are a couple things to look at. And also a big thing for me, a big component of leadership. It's kind of funny because this is like the razor's edge. And when I say the razor's edge, it could go this way or it could go that way. So being a leader, yes, it is about you because you are putting yourself out there. But just like Sarah said earlier, it's like it's for a greater cause. It's for something higher than yourself. So when you can take your self-importance off the table, it's like when you can take how do I look, or how am I being perceived, or how are people going to resonate with this, and how are people going to just like see me with what I'm saying here. When you can take that off the table and just really put yourself out there, and this is like, hey, I'm bearing all, I'm showing up for my people, like I'm trusting myself, I'm knowing that this is the message they need to hear at this specific time for them to shift their lives and to shift their lives now. When you work from that context, rather than me, me is a very small place to work from. And when you're working from like, how can I help even more people today? That is such an expansive place to work from. So just energetically being a leader, if you're just in it for, your money or your fame and things like that, if that helps you to put yourself out there courageously, I would step into that, but I would always shift back to how can I help even more people today? How can I impact their lives in a greater way? And from there, it's just like a whole different ball game that we're playing when we're working from the context of helping others versus just helping ourselves.
Ooh, I got cold chills on that.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like I feel like that once you can make that shift, that is huge. And I think you can be making that shift all the time. Like, because I don't really ever think like, oh, I want everybody to like know me and I want to be famous. But there have absolutely been times that I've cared way too much what other people are thinking about me. And to just make the shift of who cares? I'm showing up for the people who need this message. And I'm just taking me out of it. Like, I don't even factor in. I'm just like maybe a channel.
Absolutely.
Then I can shift and show up so much more powerfully when you get rid of caring about what anybody thinks in that ego place that we can often be in. So that's
a mentor of mine, Mel Abraham, said a quote that just stuck to me.
I love him.
Yeah, me too. I love him. So he said, nothing you do online is detrimental. So it's like, we think like, if I say this one thing or if I like mess something up, then it's going to just be like, something forever. And it's just like, people have done way worse stuff that we could ever do online and they're absolutely fine, and so nothing that you do online is detrimental. So, and for me, yet again, it's like the whole comfort zone challenge, if you will. It's just like, how can I open up and connect even more and just be vulnerable? And obviously there's a line between just like dishing, to be vulnerable for the sake of being vulnerable. But if it's like, if you know that your story, your message, something that you share is going to connect with people at a deeper level, then why wouldn't you share it? Because yet again, that's what we're lacking more than anything right now is like connection. This whole this whole conversation around connection is so important. And you can't connect when you're and Sarah and I were talking about this before we went live. It's like when you talk about the word power or being powerful, sometimes people get this connotation that it's like being mean or strong-arming people or like talking down to people and things like that. But power, like Sarah said, can often or also be soft. It can be compassionate. And that's where I like to work from. It's like, when people say, you opened up your heart or like you have a huge heart and things like that, that means like the world to me because a couple years ago, I was trying to be the person who had it all figured out. I had my mask on and like, I knew it all, not from a place of like, like I know it all, but I literally was trying to like, have people see me as this valuable resource that I knew it all. And now people come to me more because I'm able to connect. I'm able to provide space for people to, ask questions and show their heart and things like that. So that's what I'm about is drawing out compassion in other people. And I can't be that type of a leader if I'm worried about how I look. And I can't be that type of leader if I'm worried about, people judging me when I share my stories and things like that. I mean, to say I was depressed years ago, like, that's just like a couple years ago, I would never have said that. That was something that was in my closet. And now it's just like, I share that because other people have experienced that as well. And I want people to know that it's okay to talk about things like that, because other people have went through scary moments like that, and other people are going through scary moments like that. So if you can lay the tracks and say, hey, look, this is where I've been, this is what I've been through, then other people will look at you sometimes and say, I don't know how you got out of it exactly, but I want to know, like, tell me more. And they'll be your biggest fan for life. And that's, for me, is like what it's about. Because if I'm holding back, then I'm not helping you. And if I'm not helping you, chances are you're not helping somebody. And if you're not helping somebody, then chances are they're not helping me, and I'm not helping somebody else. And so we're all in this together. And we have this huge opportunity with this online world to really crack the shell of how we've been raised and how we've been taught to see the world and all that. We have this huge opportunity to just to lead with our hearts and to be vulnerable and to be compassionate for where others are. And yeah, so there is no right or wrong in leadership. It's just, what feels right to you, and not from a standpoint of how other people are judging you, but literally what feels right to you.
Yeah. So good. Such good stuff. So, okay, so I want to say something to you, but do you have anything else that you would like to say about leadership to kind of call this complete?
Sure. So another thing that Sarah, we should have just hit record off the start, apparently, because we can.
I know we had so much good stuff right away. That's what I need to do from now on, is just like hit record. When it's like my buddies I'm talking to, just hit record. Sorry.
Sarah and I talked about the Phoenix Rising, and Sarah and I are big into transformation work. And it's almost like there's this old us that's like ridden with like ego and self-importance and trying to look good and all that stuff. And yes, don't get it twisted. Like, you can literally snap your fingers. You can declare, like, I'm letting go of all this stuff. However, it does usually take work to kind of shed layers and to let go of kind of the old beliefs, the old habits, the old identity, in order to step into the leader. So there is transformation work that goes kind of hand in hand with being able to show up as your best self. And if you think that, if you think it's just going to like happen by accident, chances are you're being a little misled, because there's people out there that are kind of tooting that horn there. But however, it's like, for me, it's like, however you can get to know yourself more and more and more, journaling, asking questions. Sarah and I are also big fans of subconscious reprogramming with self-hypnosis, and Sarah can definitely tell you a little bit more about that, I'm sure, if that's okay. You definitely reach out to Sarah if you have any questions about self-hypnosis. And also, then it just comes to a standpoint of like your habits, like how you show up each and every day is going to determine how you show up tomorrow, and how you show up tomorrow is going to determine how you show up the next day. So for me, I'm very, very particular and conscious about, and cautious, I guess, maybe not too much cautious anymore, because I kind of threw that out the window, because we could all be way too cautious at times. So conscious about how I show up, the energy I bring each and every day. Because if I'm like in my crap, and trust me, I still get in that place too, but my job is to get out of there and to get back into my strong, powerful self each and every day, because that's the energy, that's the habits that I'm building. So it's just being very aware of just how I'm showing up each and every day, because that translates into new habits. So if it's like, if you're sitting here listening, it's like, yeah, but I'm not a courageous person, or I've never been a leader or anything like that. I wholeheartedly 100,000,000,000% believe that we are all leaders inside. And it just takes letting go of the old baggage that we're carrying around, and just kind of stepping into how you want to feel each day. And, that's your choice. I mean, that's literally your choice. And we could all look at our circumstances and everything around us. However, you can choose how you feel in this moment. And just like, even think back to a moment in your past where you felt good, and bring those strong emotions with you today, and just sit with those for a little bit and carry those out with your day. And like I said earlier about, just kind of like we're subconscious creatures, it's people pick up on energy. So if it's like, if you're in the crap, if you're in the muck, you're in the mud, all 95% of your life, and then you're wondering why people aren't buying from you or connecting with you and things like that, try your best just to like stay in a loving, strong, courageous place, and see what that does for your life. Just like balance that out to where 50% of your day or more, you're feeling, at your best. You're feeling the way you want to feel, because at the end of the day, it is your choice. So tap into that and just see how life transforms and evolves around you when you can manage your state a little bit more. So.
This is also, it's gold. It's gold. And so that's what I want to say to you was like, so we're both coaches in Jim Fortin's transformational program, and you did a live Facebook in the group answering questions and stuff the other day. And that was my question, or my comment under it was like, you always show up with your heart open. Like, I don't know, maybe you haven't always, but you do now. Like, I always see it when I see you. I feel like you're always showing up with your whole heart and your whole being. And I just think it's so awesome. And I've seen like big growth and changes in you just over our 2 years. It's almost been 2 years.
Likewise, for sure. Likewise. Yeah.
So I just want to say that, like, that is something, like, if that's what you're striving for, you're nailing it. So you're doing amazing. And I just really, really appreciate you showing up and sharing all of this openly with your open heart today with my tribe. They're going to love this. I just know it's going to serve so many people. So thank you. Of
course. And I will add one more thing. I like to ground things in action sometimes. So it's like, at the end of the day, what could be one thing you could do today that would have you feeling like more courageous? And for me, there used to be like a handful of things that I avoided for the longest time, whether it be a conversation with my accountant, whether it be a conversation with my wife. It's usually conversations that is where we're holding back. And if you can just kind of like get that off your back and do one thing that like you've been putting off or talking yourself out of, and maybe it is a Facebook Live. You've been urging to go live on your Facebook page or your profile just to tell people what's been going on in your world, and to strike up a conversation and just to put yourself out there a little bit. I would recommend by the end of this episode, what's one thing you can do to start living a little bit more courageously. So.
Yes, I love it, because I agree. Like, I love to ground things in action too, because we have to be, but then we have to do as well. And if people have been around for a while, they know what that means. Well, so, okay, I know people are going to be like, where can I find Adam? I need to know more of this gold. So can you tell people where they can find you on socials and all of that?
Yeah. No surprise. People are loving Instagram these days. So I'm spending a little bit more time over there. I love doing Instagram stories, just kind of sharing things. And that's one of the places where I do some comfort zone stuff. I'll sing on my Instagram lives and stuff.
Sometimes. I saw you do that the other day, and I was like, wow. Yeah. That was awesome. No, it was good. Yeah. Like, I love your story. So yeah, people definitely need to go find you on Instagram. So what?
Yeah, that's Adam Kiddoo, Kiddoo. So at Adam Kiddoo, Kiddoo. 2 D's, 2 O's. People like to leave off a D or an O. So.
D or an O.
Do both of them. So,
like dessert. No, wait, that's just 2 S's. Okay.
Now you got them all confused. No, yeah, send me a message. I'd love to know if you found this episode helpful at all. That'd be great. I love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you.
I will talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good.